People get killed in Pakistan. It's not news. Pakistanis kill Pakistanis. That is also not news. No, look, I don't have a conspiracy view of the world. I'm a liberal, understanding, easygoing guy who tries to get along with as many people as I can. Come on, I mean, these are political hit jobs. I mean, let's stop pretending. I'm not implying or hinting something. I'm calling it out.
PM also has been saying कि हम घर में घुस के मारते हैं.
तो क्या था ना बालाकोट में, उरी में भी क्या था. I think target's been fairly clearly set. 400 par. I think there's no ambiguity there. Look, my sense is the first two phases they were spread across the country, but they had a significant focus on the south, especially Tamil Nadu, Kerala, which for us is in a way an area which is relatively untested, or I would say a place where we've been active for a long time, but that activity hasn't translated in the past into seats. We can sense that we're going to obviously do very much better than we did in the past. So, and quite honestly, the expectation is we'll pick up some seats there. No, I wouldn't give you a number. There's a scorer out there who's doing all that. I can only share with you the sentiment. I myself was in Kerala for Rajiv Chandrasekhar's nomination. I flagged off Muralidharan's campaign. I've done a fair amount in Karnataka, both northern Karnataka and Bengaluru. Karnataka is different because we've historically established ourselves there. But for me, the interesting possibilities are Kerala, Tamil Nadu. Also, I was in Telangana where the voting will take place on the 13th. And what will happen there? Because I think in each case, for a different set of reasons, we can see the dynamic is moving in our favor. How much in our favor is the big question, and that we'll know only when the votes are counted. How much did you get in your school or college? No, I'm curious. I didn't do very well in my school. I did better in my college. When you sat for an exam, did you say, why should I get 80%? I'm happy with 60%. I mean, everybody has an urge to do better and better. So why should something more be read into it? I mean, we feel today that a resounding verdict will actually give a sense of confidence and determination, and frankly, even shape the national mood. Because as you can see, the BJP Sankalp Patra is a very detailed document. It's almost like laying out a pathway for a certain period ahead. So if you get a resounding response to that, I think it strengthens the government. So to me, it's a very natural expectation. I mean, look at it this way: the 2014 BJP was in the 200s, 2019 you were in the 300s. तो 2 और 3 के बाद क्या आता है? 4 ही आता है ना. No, first of all, our economy is not faltering. Two, India's been a very unique country, I would say, actually in the history of the world. That it's been a society which has been very open, different people from different societies, particularly people in trouble, have come to India. That's why we have the CAA, which is to open up doors for people who are in trouble. So I quite see the point. I think we should be open to people who have the need to come to India, who have a claim to come to India. So that would be my answer. Well, one, I would say it's very ideological. As I said, one segment of the Western press does it. It is a segment which has always believed that they should control the global narrative, they will determine the global narrative. They have made, in many cases, no secret of their political partiality. They have indicated open preference for other political parties in India. They have waded into specific issues, taking up positions. So if they give comments and judgments, you got to take it recognizing where it is coming from. I mean, these are not objective judgments. These are people who very openly declare that they have a stake in what is happening. They believe they have a role in what is happening. So I would urge you to recognize it for exactly what it is, which is it is a way of trying to influence politics in India, just as they influence politics across the world. Because when you actually come down to specifics, I mean, we got a lot of lectures about how to deal with public every time there's an agitation in India. I invite you to see the television pictures today on the screen. So, I mean, to me, to put it very mildly, what they preach, what they practice, what is their agenda, what is their objectivity or lack of it, I think those are the realities. So, you might say this is public, or this is some think tank giving a report. To me, it is politics by other means. So I recognize it and I will call it out. No, look, we don't have a favorite. I mean, I tell people our partner, our preferred partner in the United States is the President of the United States, whoever he or she may be. So people, I think, sometimes overread it, distort it, try to make out that there's more. I mean, and this is not even a Trump issue. I mean, I go back to Bill Clinton onwards. That you had Clinton, Bush, Obama, Trump, Biden. 5 American presidents, each one completely unlike any of the others, from very different positions in the American political spectrum. But we have shown the ability to get along with all of them. And in fact, I would argue that once we get over these ideological hang-ups, it is even now more easier for us actually to work with whoever he or she in the US may be.
But since you mentioned the ideological aspect, I mean,
on our end.
Yeah, but is
not on their end. That's their business.
I mean, Republicans seem to be liked more by the BJP.
No, look, I'm not sure I would agree with you there, because we've had a great working relationship with Biden. I mean, if you look at it, the Quad has grown from strength to strength. You see today the push which is happening in the semiconductor industry. A semiconductor at a time when this is the most sensitive industry. Countries are very, very careful about where this industry goes, who has these capabilities. And the US is very comfortable, partnering with India in this segment at our defense ties. I mean, so in fact, I would say pretty much across the board in the last 10 years, our relationship with the US has flowered. So even politically, politically, there are so many more issues and platforms on which we work. I mean, the Quad has got upgraded to the PM level. The US was actually a crucial player on IMEC. US is one of the partners on I2U2. So if if you look even at the changes which we are doing, a lot of them involves the US. So I think these very sharp binaries, they don't reflect. I mean, it's not like Congress goes this way and BJP goes that way. I mean, the Congress actually has had a hesitation with the US, whichever party is in the US, and it goes all the way back to Nehru. When you say there is a country, what do you mean by a country? I mean, a country has many moving parts. A country could mean a government. A government within a government could mean different parts of the government. A country could mean parliament. A country could mean it could mean media. It could mean economic. It could mean intelligence. So I think to say, is a country doing it, a country not doing it, I don't think that's the right question or the right answer. I think we have to, it's plain as the nose on my face that today different interests in the world, and there are self-proclaimed people. I mean, this is not a hypothetical or a conjunctural argument that I'm making. There are people who publicly said on record, because of CAA, 1 million Muslims will lose their citizenship in this country. Why are they not being held to account? Because nobody has lost their citizenship. There are people who said, if there are demonstrations in this country which inconvenience the public, which block pathways, and by the way, you must, whatever else you do, you must not do anything to disturb that demonstration. So how are they handling it when it comes to their own country? So when you look at these rankings, you look at, I see some of it. By the way, I saw one today, which I must share with you. As members of the Indian press, you'll all be happy to know you're ranked, I think, number 159 in terms of press freedom. So look, come on, I mean, these are political hit jobs. I mean, let's stop pretending. I'm not implying or hinting something, I'm calling it out. You're talking कुछ पाकिस्तान की खबर जो है.
No, people who have been killed in Pakistan and wanted by India.
So that discomfiture around these reports about
I mean,
killings.
People get killed in Pakistan. It's not news. Okay? Pakistanis kill Pakistanis. That is also not news. Terrorists are there in large numbers. Statistically, if they're in large numbers, things will happen to them. Now, they have created an industry which is, I mean, the terrorist industry has its own, shall I say, ways of working and happening. So things could happen there. I mean, people have been warning Pakistan for a long time. I mean, forget India. You had an American foreign minister who very publicly, Hillary Clinton, who very publicly warned Pakistan. So if you have a cast of characters like this who apparently are your sterling contributions to whatever activities you take pride in, I guess some things are a natural outcome of that, no?
But sir, in those reports, Indian officials have been named, and India is not denied.
Really? I didn't see anybody's name in the Guardian report.
Like was there? Sir?
Guardian?
Washington.
So he is referring to the Panun case also.
No, you have me, I think you're getting bias crossed here. You're talking about the Guardian or you're talking about the
Both,
Washington
sir,
Post?
both.
Though, I mean, you could argue in quality there's not much difference, but but where is the common element? I don't see one.
So I think, let me just paraphrase what everybody says. PM also has been saying कि हम घर में घुस के मारते हैं.
तो क्या था ना बालाकोट में, उरी में भी क्या था?
So is that the reference? And then there are these reports, and then there are these comments which come from foreign agencies and reports, and then there is the case going on in the US. So all of them point to, or at least the narrative, that somehow India is undertaking certain operations in foreign soil.
No, look, guys, 2 and 2 and 2 doesn't make 222. Okay? Somebody says something happened in Pakistan. May have happened. Who did it? Who knows? Somebody else is saying something could have happened or could have been planned to happen in some other country. Maybe. But why would there be any, Pakistan is Pakistan, other countries are other countries. There may be some other report, because the beauty of, I don't have to tell you people, when you run a story which says I have talked to highly placed sources who absolutely verify something, किसी का नाम नहीं है, you have no requirement to produce any proof. I mean, I think if you went to your own editor and said, I've got these kinds of sources, I wonder if you guys will run a story like this. Let's look at our Israel position. October 7th, is it terrorism or was it not terrorism? The Congress party has a problem saying it is terrorism. They choke when it comes to that. You saw the waffling which happened. We had no problem. Okay. If somebody has been a victim of terrorism, do they have a right to respond? Do they not have a right to respond? Now, having said that, there are 2-3 issues. This has nothing to do with vote bank. Anybody undertaking any action has to be careful about civilian casualties. I mean, I would say this even to our own forces if we are ever in that situation, which I know hopefully we will not be. And then there is the two-state solution. I mean, we would support a two-state solution, not because of vote bank consideration, because that is the sensible thing to do if you want stability in that vital part of the world. It's a geopolitical, geostrategic assessment that we have. So I would argue that there is a fundamental difference between the way the Congress party looked at the Middle East and the way we looked at it. Essentially, I can't give you word by word quote, but essentially the Prime Minister said the relations are abnormal and we want to see normalcy, but normalcy will only happen if there's peace and tranquility in the border. Now, I could have said it, this part of it first and that part of it second or up and down, but essentially we've been saying the same thing for 4 years now. And I don't think the Prime Minister said anything which was a departure from what has been our consistent policy on this issue. And we still say, because, I reiterate it with regularity, because on the Chinese side, there is a continuous attempt to say, well, that peace and tranquility is not so important. That has its place, but there's something bigger out there. If you don't have peace and tranquility, I mean, they keep saying it has a place. I agree, it has a place. It has a central place. So that point, I think, is for us a consistent point, and I don't see any reason why we should change from that. I don't think there's anybody in the government who's suggesting that we should change from it. No right-thinking citizen can suggest we should change from it. After all, if there is no peace and tranquility in the border, how can you have workable relations with any neighbor? I mean, forget China. The second issue on the economic issue. See, there are two parts to it. One part of it is straightforward economic, where you have a country whose manufacturing practices, I think, put the rest of the world at a disadvantage. And we are entirely within our rights to ensure that our manufacturers, particularly our SMEs and our labor, our working classes, their interests are protected. Because we believe this did not happen in the past. That we believe today, I mean, I get a lot of lectures about, in this globalized world, why are you being so protected? I will take whatever defenses I have to do in the interest of the working class of India. Their jobs are at stake. people who give this lecture are not connected with the real economy and the real society. I mean, as someone who spends a lot of time with SMEs, who's lived in Noida for much of my life, I can tell you how strong that sense of resentment is today about dumping of goods from China. So we will do what it takes. The second is there are sensitive sectors. Every country today has the right to manage its sensitive sectors in a way in which it is in consonance with its national security. So the idea, and a lot of the globalization advocates, I think, need a basic lesson in national security. I mean, I cannot, in the name of open economy, open up my national security, that to a country which is laying claim on my territory. I mean, it sort of stares us in the face. So I'm actually astonished sometimes at the arguments that I hear, that somewhere we are doing, something which is harmful to our economy. I think actually both our economic security and our national security is at stake. And in terms of, how do you, where do you open up? Look, it's not like we are close to China. I mean, there are still economic transactions which are taking place. But economic transactions do require, in today's world, do require diligence, do require scrutiny, do require examination. Don't buy this line that somewhere, great good will come out of free flows. I mean, if developed economies can be hollowed out in the way in which they have been hollowed out, what do you think will happen to you if you follow in that same path? We're not going to make that mistake. I mean, we are in touch regularly with Apple, and I think it's not like people are that inflexible and, solutions have not been found. On the contrary, please look at Apple's performance. I mean, they are doing splendidly, and please ask him what complaints he has. I assure you that, whether it is Apple or anybody else in a similar situation, if we're not impractical people, don't get me wrong. We want to see global companies come to India. If global companies have prior, vendors and supply chains, we're not impervious to it. Nobody has said Chinese companies can't come to India. On the contrary, we have only said we will examine, we will scrutinize, we will try to understand who is coming here for what. So I don't think I would actually point to Apple as a case which has a good experience in India, not a difficult one. That is a concern to us. In fact, it's very much a part of our conversations, which I would confess have not been very successful with Canada, that we have repeatedly told Canada that you, for some reason, seem to be very open about providing, haven to organized crime from our country. And we believe they are doing it for vote bank reasons. So are they a problem? Of course they are a problem. But we are trying to convince the Canadians they are a problem for Canadians too. That if you have organized crime, I mean, we have, I don't remember the exact number, but I think 25 or 26 significant extradition requests of Canada. Many of them relate to organized crime. And we've been repeatedly telling the Canadians that if you actually allow such forces to set up shop and create networks, this is going to harm your own society. But so far, I don't think that advice has been well heeded. Well, I think for a start, you make your unhappiness clear. And then, depending on what the situation is, you take it on from there. But you have seen that, one of the reasons why we reduced the number of Canadian diplomats in this country was we felt the activities of many of them were not something which would be acceptable to us. We had been very patient with them, but when we saw how they behaved out there, we thought it was time to do something about it, which we did. And I don't buy this view that there are necessarily foreign governments who are out to get us. I do make the point, which we did earlier in the conversation, that there are political forces, there are people with strong ideological proclivities who apparently have issues with us, both as a political party and as a government. So I think there are frictions out there. What in a way you are suggesting, this is what happens, if you try to connect everything, then, but in real life that is, million things happen. Not everything is necessarily related to everything else. So I wouldn't sort of draw it to the extent to which your question suggests. But if you ask me, are there issues of differences or are there problems with some of our partner countries? Well, I think there are. Because I start with Canada as one example, but not just with Canada. I mean, I give you 3 examples. Okay, you had an attack on the Indian High Commission in London. Okay, somebody entered the premises. Somebody took down the flag. I ask my British counterpart, what would you do if this had happened to you? If your High Commission was attacked, if your flag was taken down, if your security was breached, would you be giving me the same answer you're giving me? Or I had an arson attack on my consulate in San Francisco.
Not just once.
Okay. Imagine if roles were reversed, which it won't, because our security is more serious. I at least take protection of diplomats in this country seriously. I can't say the same for everybody else. But imagine if our roles were reversed, or what you saw in Canada. I mean, just think of it for a moment. In which country do you see posters of foreign leaders and posters of accredited ambassadors saying wanted, killer? Where do you see it? How can you put up with it? So I think, forget about pushback. I think we need to be very clear about what are our rights and what are our interests. Well, you are right in flagging attention to it, because essentially across our borders today, pretty much across the length of our borders, the people in control are not the central authorities. So there are different groups and organizations who are in control. Now, this is not my country. Okay, what I am doing is the sensible thing, which is I am at least now protecting my border, which till now was in many ways a somewhat open border. So we are looking at what we need to do so that we don't have, if things get worse, we don't have flows of people who would be destabilizing for us. That's my primary obligation. Beyond that, what happens on their side is for them to work out. But obviously, I will have to develop a working arrangement with whoever is on that side of the border. I think that's a logical thing to do. So it is a situation of great concern, and you have to kind of get the balance right here, because there are ethnicities which are across the border. At the same time, as I said, the flow of people, these are all, there's a lot of, by the way, there's been a big pickup of organized crime and, narcotics flow and all of that. So that's also a big worry for us. So I have to look at the stability and law and order on one hand, the ethnicity of people, the interstate relationship, and the practicalities of managing a border. I have to get this balance right. No, my Vichardhara on Nehru has not changed. I mean, I think in terms of a lot of I mean, do understand what I am trying to say. I am trying to say that in the foreign policy for which Nehru had a predominant role for the first 18 years of our existence, and the assumptions which his successors carried forward, there were some significant shortcomings and flaws and errors of judgment. I don't think this is something I needed to join the BJP or retire from service to have. When I was, it was Indian Foreign Service, it was not Nehru's Foreign Service. Let's be very clear on that. Most of us who, for example, dealt with China felt that the 1954, that the whole Panchshil era was a fundamental misreading of China. Or if I go back even earlier, and I've actually written about it, the Nehru-Patel debate of how to handle China. So it's not a sentiment any of us, I mean not just me. We didn't need to be out of the government to understand the truth about Nehru. It was staring us in the face. It stared the nation in the face in 1962. I mean, please read the letter that Nehru writes to Kennedy after Bombdilla fell and tell me how you feel about it. That how could our country have been brought down to such a situation where you're begging somebody. So I read that 62 letter 50 years ago, maybe more. So this is not politics. Do not confuse, in the name of politics, it should not be that we should have no judgment and no evaluation of anything in our history. Are we then blind followers of what happened before? Ask yourself that question. When I travel out, I see a lot of interest in what we have done in terms of digital delivery. That the rampant corruption which characterized our public services, I think the rest of the world looks at this, this enormous transformation of the last decade. And there's a lot of interest whether, it can be borrowed or transposed or shared or so I think there's real global interest. I've had prime ministers and presidents of different countries or finance ministers of different countries actually talk to me about it. So we are actually today in, when we look at foreign policy is not just about politics. Foreign policy is also, a lot of it is about business, it is exports, investment, etc. But it's also about what is it you can share, what is it you can actually develop as something common with some other country. And definitely digital public infrastructure is one space where we think that we would be much more relevant to the world, in the global south especially. I would actually put defense exports not as the derivative. The primary change is in Make in India. That we today have a strong insistence that as far as possible with as many partners on as many products or capabilities, to the extent they can be fully or partly or collaboratively produced in India, we think that is good for us because that is part of building your manufacturing. Because that the manufacturing involved in defense also gets involved in non-defense and vice versa. So there is first, in fact, I would even put defense as a derivative. I think first of all you have today a shift in our thinking on manufacturing. That contrary to the Raghuram Rajan, Rahul Gandhi view of manufacturing, that we are incapable of it and we shouldn't be doing it, and that you make fun of Make in India. Actually, we believe strongly we are capable of manufacturing and it is necessary to manufacture because without manufacturing you won't get technology. You won't be able to develop your technology. So however tough it is, however hard it is, we have to get into the manufacturing game more seriously. Once you get into it, then you apply that manufacturing everywhere. I would do it in defense, which is your question, but I would say do it in railways. I would do it in, give me I would do it in telecom. So I would actually push this country to do as much manufacturing in as many sectors as possible, and the initial years of it will be difficult because you are competing against people who are established, who are bigger scale, who have in certain cases other advantages of subsidies, etc. But once you start manufacturing, then you start looking for markets. Now, defense is something where your domestic market, there's only one user. So, once you become a defense manufacturer, I would say it stands to reason you will become a defense exporter. Once you become a defense exporter, why should you have those constraints again? Everybody else exports defense products and services. Why should you be holier than the rest of them and bind yourself down? Business is business. So, therefore, I would say defense exports to defense industry, to make in India, to manufacturing, to actually getting yourself into a balanced economy. And I think this is the kind of thinking which was really missing till the last decade. Our sense of friendship became a sense of kinship. So, Mitra became Bandhu.
Guru was not friendship.
Huh?
Leading as Vishnu Guru. And now
We went through actually through Vishwa Guru is what other people said about us.
No.
We very modestly described ourselves as Vishwamitra. Huh? So from Vishwamitra we became Vishwa Bandhu because we wanted to show that humanity is one and we are all related to each other.